Welcome to episode 5 of Discovering Nagasaki from the Local. My name is Chad, and this is where you can experience everyday life in this scenic and fascinating part of Japan. First of all, I'd like to thank all of the people who subscribed and sent in answers to last week's questions. So far, no one has correctly answered both of those questions. The first question was, how many horsepower can my small Yanmar tractor develop? From my garden video, you can see that the model number of my tractor is F145. A quick internet search will reveal that this tractor develops 14 horsepower. The second question was, what is the closest JR train station to Nagasaki's Peace Park? The answer is Urakami Station, the station that I showed you before I went to Peace Park. During the past week, the temperatures in Omura have been really hot, above 32 degrees Celsius. Although the yearly Obon Festival took place in Nagasaki City this past week, it was quite a bit smaller and quieter than usual. Obon is a Japanese festival to commemorate the people who have died in the past year. Throughout Japan, family members of the recently deceased build illuminated wooden floats and wheel them down the streets in a large parade. In today's vlog, I will show you how to make champon in our kitchen, a common Japanese dish that came from the Chinese community in Nagasaki. I will also give you a tour of Nagasaki Airport. This airport is actually in Omura, not in Nagasaki City, and it is the world's first offshore airport. Let's get started. This is a package of Nagasaki champon mix. It's a vegetable, seafood, and noodle soup that is popular throughout Japan. The 2-serving package contains the broth seasonings and ramen noodles. The broth powder contains salt, pepper, garlic, onion, as well as vegetable and pork extracts. You can substitute spaghetti for these noodles. However, I would never suggest this to my wife. It would be sacrilegious. For today's champon, I'm using pork and squid, shrimp, peas, bean sprouts, cabbage, onions, a carrot, kamaboko fish paste, and kikurage, a type of black mushroom. You also need a large bowl to serve the champon in. First, you need to cut up the veggies on a cutting board. You want to chop the carrot, the onions, and the cabbage into small pieces, like this. A good friend of ours owns his own blacksmith shop here in Omura, where he makes knives in the traditional Japanese way. He made this one, and it's wickedly sharp, so I need to be careful. These are the veggies I just chopped up. The portion sizes of the meat and seasonings are up to you. Next, I need to soak the kikurage strips in water for a few minutes to soften them up and let them expand. Now I'll put the contents of one package of broth powder into a pot of boiling water, like this. followed by the chopped vegetables, and the peas. Now I'll cut up the shrimp, ebi, and pork, butaniku, into short thin strips before I cook them. Squid, ika, and octopus, tako, is also commonly used in Nagasaki, but you can use whatever you have available. Scallops, clams, etc. The vegetables are still boiling in the broth. Now I will add the meat to the hot fry pan. To be safe, this meat needs to be cooked thoroughly. Now I will put the dry noodles in a pot of boiling water. 5 minutes should be okay for these ramen noodles. The bean sprouts should be added last to the broth because they don't need to be boiled as long as the carrots, cabbage, and onions. All three of our range burners are on now. I'll stir up the vegetables and broth with a wooden ladle and do the same with the boiling noodles. Now the meat needs to be turned over in the hot fry pan. Next I have to cut the kamaboko into thin slices with my knife, like so. You can see how the kikurage has expanded in the water. Now I'll add a small amount of water to the frying meat and let it simmer for a few moments with the lid on. The first thing you add to the large bowl is the strained hot ramen noodles. Then on top of that you need to add the boiled vegetables and broth. Like this. Then add the fried meat on top of that. The kikurage. And finally the kamaboko. Itadakimasu. Champon is delicious, healthy, and quite easy to make. This is the view from Mishima Island in Omura Bay. From here you can see Omura in the distance and the bridge which runs out to this island. The bridge is exactly 1 kilometer long. To the right you can see Nagasaki Airport, its control tower, and a large parking lot. Of the 94 airports in Japan, this is a rather small one. It's modern and able to handle the 88 or so daily arrivals and departures that it was designed to accommodate. Here you can see a display from Nagasaki's Lantern Festival near the arrival gate. Lantern Festival is a Chinese festival that is held in February, around the time of the Chinese New Year. It was held this year just prior to the pandemic lockdown here in Japan. This airport normally accommodates domestic and international flights, but because of the pandemic, there are currently no international flights departing or arriving here. I am now on the third floor of the airport near the observation deck. Here you can see some of the many jets and airlines that this airport is used by. Notice the photo and model of the Concorde jet, which landed here only once on September the 2nd, 1990. My wife Yasko remembers that day very well because the Concorde jet created a noise that could be heard all over Omura. This is a view from the observation deck on the third floor. From here you can see the large boardwalk, and in front a couple of jets and gates in the distance. Soon a Peach Airlines jet will take off from this airport. As it takes off in the distance, you can see the large landscape sign of Nagasaki on the hill behind the runway. This blue sign here on the right shows photos of this airport's construction. It took 3 years, 200 huge dump trucks, and 18 billion yen to build this airport, and it was completed in 1975, 45 years ago. Unlike Kansai Airport near Osaka, Nagasaki Airport was built on an existing island. It was relatively inexpensive, and it's not sinking into the ocean. And now for today's challenging questions. Although I showed 3 types of meat in my champon cooking demo, which one did I not cut up in the video? Which convenience store was right next to the arrival gate in Nagasaki Airport? Please give this vlog a thumbs up and leave a comment, a question, and or a suggestion below. I read and answer every comment that I receive. Try to be the first to answer this week's questions. As a rule, I upload a new vlog every Sunday evening, Japan time. If you want a list of the content in each of my previous vlogs, you can find it on my Facebook page listed below. By the way, champon was first served in the Chinese Shikkaido restaurant in Nagasaki in 1899. It was based on a dish in Fujian cuisine. Champon is served in the vast majority of restaurants in Nagasaki City, and the word champon also means mixed up in Japanese. Champon in Okinawa is not a noodle dish, but a rice-based dish. See you next week.